Subscribe to Infidelity Tales Lab. Now, let's begin. Andrew Chandler stood at his kitchen window, watching his 7-year-old daughter Emma chase butterflies in the backyard. The morning sunlight caught her auburn hair, the same shade as his own, as she laughed, pure and unself-conscious. These moments had become precious to him, though he couldn't explain why a sense of unease had settled into his bones over the past few months. The sound of his wife's heels clicking against hardwood pulled him from his thoughts. Catherine entered the kitchen, phone pressed to her ear, her expression carefully neutral. She'd perfected that look during their 8 years of marriage, a mask that revealed nothing. "Yes, Mom. I'll tell him," Catherine said, ending the call. She poured herself coffee, not meeting his eyes. "My mother wants us to come on the boat this Saturday. Family trip." Andrew's jaw tightened. "Your family's boat trips aren't exactly my idea of fun, Kate. It's important to her. Curtis and Wes will be there with their families." She finally looked at him, and for a moment, he saw something flicker in her green eyes. Fear? Guilt? It vanished. Emma would love it. You know how she adores being on the water. That was true. Emma had inherited his love of the ocean, despite Catherine's family treating him like an outsider since the day they'd met. He'd been a documentary filmmaker back then, working on a project about corporate fraud in Boston. Catherine had been his researcher, brilliant and beautiful, from a wealthy Connecticut family who'd made their fortune in real estate development. Her mother, Patty Grimes, had made her disapproval clear from the start. Andrew wasn't their kind of people. His father had been a union electrician, his mother a high school teacher. He'd built his career through talent and persistence, not family connections. "What's the occasion?" Andrew asked. "Does it need to be one? It's summer. The weather's perfect." Catherine's tone had an edge now. "Unless you'd rather I tell my mother that my husband can't spare one day for family." The manipulation was subtle but effective. It always was. Andrew had learned to recognize it, though he'd stopped fighting these battles years ago. For Emma's sake, he told himself. The marriage had cooled into something resembling a business arrangement, but Emma deserved stability. "Fine. Saturday." Relief washed over Catherine's face, too quickly and too intensely for a simple family outing. Andrew filed that detail away. His years making documentaries had trained him to notice the small things, the inconsistencies in people's stories. That night, after Emma was asleep, Andrew sat in his home office reviewing footage for his latest project, an investigation into insurance fraud schemes. The work had shifted in recent years from theatrical documentaries to consulting for law firms and insurance companies. It paid better, but felt less meaningful. Still, it kept him sharp. His phone buzzed. A text from Curtis Grimes, Catherine's older brother. "Looking forward to Saturday. Been too long, brother." They'd never been brothers, and Curtis knew it. The Grimes family had tolerated Andrew, but never accepted him. Curtis ran the family's real estate empire now, after their father's death 5 years ago. Wes, the younger brother, handled property management and enforcement, a polite term for the muscle work of evictions and intimidation. Andrew deleted the text without responding. Friday evening arrived with Catherine in an unusually cheerful mood. She'd been on the phone with her mother twice that day, voices low and urgent when Andrew entered rooms. Both times, the conversations ended abruptly. "Emma, sweetie, have you packed your bag for tomorrow?" Catherine called from the kitchen. Emma bounded down the stairs, her small backpack already prepared. "I put on my swimsuit and my sunscreen and my dolphin book. That's my smart girl." Andrew caught her in a hug, breathing in the strawberry scent of her shampoo. Something twisted in his chest. That same inexplicable dread. "Daddy, will you swim with me tomorrow? Grandma said there's a special spot where we're going. Your grandmother talked to you about tomorrow?" Emma nodded enthusiastically. She called and said it's going to be a day I'll never forget. She sounded really happy. Catherine appeared in the doorway, face pale. "Emma, go get ready for bed, honey. School night routine." After Emma scampered off, Andrew turned to his wife. "Your mother called Emma? Since when does she do that?" "She's trying, Andrew. She wants to be closer to her granddaughter. Isn't that what you've always wanted?" Catherine's voice carried a defensive edge. "What I've always wanted is for your family to treat us with basic respect. Maybe if you'd made more of an effort." "I've made effort. I've swallowed insults, ignored condescension, and pretended not to notice how they talk about me. Andrew kept his voice level, aware of Emma upstairs. But something's different lately. Your mother's sudden interest in Emma. These family gatherings after years of minimal contact. What's really going on? Catherine's mask slipped for just a second, and Andrew saw genuine anguish underneath. Then she composed herself. You're paranoid. They're family. That's all. But Andrew had spent 15 years investigating fraud, learning to read people who lied professionally. His wife was lying now. The question was why. Saturday morning broke clear and beautiful, the kind of perfect June day that belonged in travel magazines. Andrew loaded their bags into Catherine's Mercedes, noting how she checked her phone obsessively, fingers trembling slightly as she typed responses. The drive to the marina took 90 minutes, winding through coastal Connecticut towns where old money hid behind manicured hedges and private gates. The Grimes family kept their yacht, a 42-foot cruiser named Legacy, an exclusive marina in Mystic. Patty Grimes waited on the dock, a severe woman in her early 60s who'd maintained her looks through expensive procedures and rigid discipline. She wore white linen-like armor, oversized sunglasses hiding her eyes. Curtis and Wes flanked her, both tall and broad-shouldered, wearing polo shirts that barely contained their gym-sculpted physiques. Catherine, Emma, Andrew. Patty's greeting descended in warmth with each name. She bent to kiss Emma's forehead, lingering there while whispering something Andrew couldn't hear. Emma giggled in response. What did Grandma say? Andrew asked his daughter. It's a secret. Emma beamed, delighting in the mystery. Curtis shook Andrew's hand with excessive pressure. Ready for a beautiful day on the water, brother? Can't wait, Andrew replied, matching the grip. Wes barely acknowledged him, already moving to prepare the boat. Andrew noticed he seemed nervous, avoiding eye contact. Where are the wives? The other grandkids? Andrew asked. Curtis and Wes both had families. Couldn't make it, Patty said smoothly. Work commitments. You know how it is. Andrew didn't know, because he'd never been invited to anything where the broader family would be present. This was unusual. Just the core Grimes family, plus Catherine and Emma. Plus him, the outsider. The unease crystallized into something sharper. They boarded the Legacy, and Wes took the helm, steering them out of the marina into Long Island Sound. The water stretched endless and blue, gentle swells rocking the boat. Emma squealed with delight, hanging over the rail as dolphins surfaced in the distance. Andrew stood near the stern, watching his wife interact with her family. Catherine seemed wound-tight, her laughter forced. Curtis kept checking his watch. Patty maintained her position near Emma, one manicured hand resting on the girl's shoulder. Andrew, could you help me with something in the cabin? Curtis called. Every instinct Andrew had developed over years of investigative work screamed warning. He glanced at Emma, still enchanted by the dolphins, then at Catherine. His wife wouldn't meet his eyes. Sure. He followed Curtis below deck, muscles tensed, aware of the confined space. The cabin smelled of leather and expensive wood polish. Curtis pulled out a bottle of scotch, pouring 2 glasses with hands that shook slightly. I wanted to talk to you, Curtis began. Man to man. About Catherine. What about her? Curtis handed him a glass, and Andrew noticed the other man's face was sweating despite the air conditioning. She's not happy, Andrew. Hasn't been for years. The marriage isn't working. That's between me and my wife. Except it affects the whole family. Emma, especially. Curtis drank deeply. Mom thinks, we all think, it might be time to consider what's best for everyone. Andrew set his glass down untouched. And what would that be? Catherine deserves better. Emma deserves better. The Grimes family takes care of its own, and you. Curtis trailed off, the insult hanging unspoken. I'm not one of you. That's what you mean. You've never fit in. You know it. We know it. This marriage was a mistake from the start. Andrew felt cold clarity settle over him. Did your mother send you down here to tell me this? Today? On this trip? Curtis's silence was answer enough. Get out of my way. Andrew moved toward the stairs. Andrew, wait. But Andrew was already climbing back to the deck, his documentary filmmaker's instincts in overdrive. Something was very wrong. The isolated location, the missing extended family members, Curtis's nervous confession, Catherine's guilt, it all formed a pattern he couldn't quite see. He emerged into blinding sunlight. The boat had stopped, engine idling. They were far from shore, nothing but water in all directions. Patty stood near Emma at the stern rail. Wes had left the helm. Catherine stood frozen near the cabin door. "Emma, come here," Andrew said, trying to keep his voice calm. "In a minute, Daddy. Grandma's showing me something." Then several things happened at once. Curtis grabbed Andrew from behind, powerful arms locking around his chest. Wes emerged from the side cabin, moving toward Emma. Andrew thrashed, throwing his weight backward, slamming Curtis into the cabin wall. The grip loosened enough for Andrew to break free, but Wes was already reaching for Emma. "Don't touch her." Andrew lunged forward. Patty's hand clamped onto Emma's shoulder, and the girl's scream pierced the air. Andrew saw Wes's fist coming too late. Knuckles connected with his temple, and the world spun. He staggered, trying to stay upright, trying to reach Emma. "Catherine!" Andrew shouted, blood running down his face. "Stop them!" His wife stood paralyzed, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." Curtis hit him from behind, a brutal blow to the kidneys. Andrew went down to his knees. Through swimming vision, he saw Patty lifting Emma, his daughter screaming, reaching for him, and then the older woman threw her overboard. "No!" Andrew surged to his feet, but Curtis and Wes grabbed him together, dragging him to the rail. He fought with everything he had, landing punches, hearing something crack, but there were two of them and he was already injured. They lifted him and threw him into the water. The cold was shocking, stealing his breath. Andrew surfaced, gasping, searching frantically. "Emma! Daddy!" Her voice, terrified and close. He swam toward her, finding his daughter treading water, her swimming lessons paying off. Andrew grabbed her, pulling her close. "I've got you, baby. I've got you." The boat's engine roared to life above them. Andrew looked up to see Curtis at the rail, watching. Catherine had collapsed against the cabin, face in her hands. Patty stood stern and unmoved, a grim satisfaction on her face. "What?" Andrew screamed at them. "She's your granddaughter." Patty's voice carried over the water, cold and clear. "Sometimes sacrifices must be made for the greater good. The family will remember you appropriately." The legacy began to turn, moving away. Andrew tread water one-armed, holding Emma tight, his mind racing. They were miles from shore. The water was cold. He was injured. They would die out here. That's when Emma whispered in his ear, voice trembling but urgent. "Daddy, don't splash. Play dead." Andrew froze. "What?" "Grandma told me. Before she pushed me. She said stay still, little fish, and the sharks won't find you." Emma's small body shook against him. "Daddy, I think she wanted the sharks to eat us." Horror and understanding crashed over Andrew simultaneously. They planned this, all of it. The isolated trip, throwing them overboard far from shore, the cryptic message to Emma. They wanted it to look like an accident, a tragic boating mishap, bodies lost at sea. But Emma's quick thinking had given them a chance. "Okay, baby, we're going to float. Can you be very still? Very quiet. I'm scared. I know, but you're the bravest girl I know. We're going to play the best game of statue ever. Can you do that for Daddy?" Emma nodded against his chest. They floated, motionless except for the minimal movements needed to keep their heads above water. Andrew could hear the boat's engine growing fainter. Every muscle in his body screamed to swim, to escape, but he trusted his daughter's instinct and the chilling logic of Patty's words. 10 minutes passed like hours. The cold seeped into Andrew's bones. Emma's lips were turning blue, but she stayed still, whimpering softly. Andrew kept his body temperature as high as he could, holding her close, both of them barely breathing. Finally, when the boat was just a speck on the horizon, Andrew allowed himself to look around. No fins, no sharks, but the shore was invisible, and exhaustion was setting in. "You did perfect, Emma. So perfect." He kissed her forehead. "Now we need to swim. Can you hold on to my back? I'm so cold, Daddy." I know, baby. Just hold on tight. Andrew positioned Emma on his back, her arms around his neck, and began swimming. He picked a direction based on sun position and memory of the boat's route, hoping he was heading toward land. His head throbbed where Wes had hit him. His ribs ached from Curtis's punch, but he swam with mechanical precision, conserving energy, focusing on each stroke. Emma's weight seemed to double as time passed. His arms burned. The cold water numbed his extremities. But Andrew Chandler had not spent his career exposing criminals to die in the water at the hands of his wife's family. He swam for their lives. And as he swam, fury replaced fear. Patty Grimes had made one crucial mistake. She'd assumed he would panic, splash, draw sharks, ensure their deaths. Instead, Emma's warning had bought them time. And if they survived this, when they survived this, Andrew would make sure the Grimes family paid for every second of terror his daughter had endured. The water stretched endless around them, but Andrew swam on, his daughter's heartbeat against his back, both of them fighting for survival together. After what felt like hours, but was probably 40 minutes, Andrew's foot touched something solid. A sandbar. They'd reached shallow water. He stumbled forward, Emma still clinging to him, until they collapsed onto a rocky beach. They lay there gasping, alive. Emma started crying, deep, racking sobs. Andrew pulled her close, his own tears mixing with salt water. We made it, baby. We're safe. But even as he said it, Andrew knew the truth. They weren't safe. The Grimes family had tried to murder them and failed. They would try again. Catherine had stood by and let it happen. His marriage was a lie, built on whatever dark foundation her family had laid years ago. Andrew looked at his daughter, bruised and traumatized but alive, and made a silent vow. He would find out why they'd done this. He would expose them, and he would make sure they never threatened Emma again. The war had just begun. They'd washed ashore on a small, rocky beach near a private estate. Andrew, still soaked and shaking, carried Emma up from the water toward the large colonial house visible through the trees. His head pounded, his vision kept blurring, but he forced himself forward. A man in his 60s emerged from the house, shotgun in hand, then froze when he saw Andrew's bloodied face and Emma's blue lips. Christ almighty. Get inside. My wife's a nurse. The couple, introduced as Frederick and Mary Mahoney, wrapped them in blankets and called 911. Mary tended to Andrew's head wound while Emma sat by the fireplace, staring blankly. What happened? Frederick asked. Boating accident. Andrew met the older man's eyes. No, not an accident. The police arrived first, then an ambulance. Andrew insisted they take Emma to the hospital immediately while he gave his statement. The two officers, one young and eager, one older and skeptical, listened to his account with increasing disbelief. Let me get this straight, the older cop, Officer Dale Wright, said. Your wife's family threw you and your daughter overboard in the middle of Long Island Sound? Deliberately? Yes. Why would they do that? I don't know yet. But they did. Andrew's voice carried absolute certainty. We'll need to speak with your wife, Wright said. And her family. Good. Start with Patty Grimes. Ask her why her granddaughter knew about sharks before she was pushed into the water. At the hospital, doctors treated Andrew for a concussion, bruised ribs, and mild hypothermia. Emma was in worse shape. Severe hypothermia, shock, possible pneumonia developing. They admitted her overnight for observation. Andrew sat by her bed, watching her sleep, his mind racing through everything that had happened. The pieces didn't fit yet. Why would Catherine's family want them dead? Money was the obvious answer. Life insurance, inheritance, but the Grimeses had wealth. What could killing him and Emma possibly gain them? His phone, recovered from his pocket and miraculously still functioning after drying out, buzzed with messages. 17 missed calls from Catherine. Texts ranging from frantic to furious. Where are you? Andrew, please answer. The police are here asking about an incident. You're making this worse. Mother says you attacked Curtis and fell overboard. If you loved Emma, you'd stop this. The gaslighting was masterful. They'd already built their narrative. Andrew, unstable and violent, had attacked Curtis, fallen overboard, somehow gotten Emma in the water too. An accident. A tragedy. Not attempted murder. Andrew deleted the messages without responding. Instead, he called someone he trusted. Johnny Joseph speaking. Johnny, it's Andrew Chandler. Andy, haven't heard from you in months. How's the documentary business? Johnny Joseph had been Andrew's investigative partner on 3 major projects before going solo as a private investigator. The man was relentless, unorthodox, and brilliant at finding information people wanted to keep hidden. I need your help. My wife's family just tried to kill me and my daughter. The line went silent for a moment. You're serious? Completely. I'm at Yale New Haven Hospital with Emma. We're alive because my 7-year-old figured out what they were planning. Andrew's voice cracked slightly. Johnny, I need to know why. I need to know everything about the Grimes family. And I need evidence that will stand up in court. Jesus, Andy, you okay? I will be when they're in prison. All right, give me everything you know. Andrew recounted the day's events in detail. Every conversation, every strange moment, Emma's revelation about Patty's whispered words. Johnny listened without interruption, and Andrew could hear him typing notes. Insurance? Johnny asked when Andrew finished. I've got $1 million policy through my work, and Catherine's the beneficiary. But that's standard. The Grimes family is worth tens of millions. Maybe not anymore. Real estate took a beating the last few years. I'll dig into their finances. Johnny paused. What about custody? Any issues there? Andrew's blood ran cold. No. Catherine and I have been distant, but there's never been talk of divorce. Emma adores me. There's no custody battle. Yet. But if they removed you from the picture, Catherine gets full custody and likely the insurance payout. That's motive. They threw Emma overboard too. I know. That's the part that doesn't fit. Unless. Johnny trailed off. Unless what? Unless Emma wasn't supposed to die. Not immediately. Kids can survive cold water better than adults. Maybe they counted on her being rescued while you drowned. Dead father, traumatized daughter, grieving widow. Catherine gets everything and the family maintains control of Emma. The theory made a sick kind of sense, except for one detail. Patty told Emma about sharks. She wanted my daughter to panic and attract them. They were missing something. A bigger picture. Johnny's voice hardened. I'll start digging tonight. Meanwhile, you need to lawyer up. Criminal defense and divorce, immediately. I don't want a divorce. I want the truth. Andy, your wife watched them try to kill you. Whatever your marriage was, it's over. Andrew looked at Emma, sleeping fitfully under hospital blankets. Yeah, it is. After hanging up, Andrew stepped in the hallway and found Officer Wright waiting. Mr. Chandler, we need to talk. Have you arrested Patty Grimes? We've spoken to the family. They tell a very different story than yours. Wright's expression was professionally neutral. According to Mrs. Catherine Chandler and her family, you became aggressive on the boat, attacked Curtis Grimes, and in the struggle, you fell overboard with Emma. That's a lie. Curtis Grimes has a broken nose. Says you threw the first punch. Because he grabbed me from behind while his brother went for my daughter. Do you have any evidence of premeditation? Any proof they planned this? Andrew's fists clenched. My daughter heard her grandmother tell her to stay still so sharks would find us. What more proof do you need? The statement of a traumatized 7-year-old isn't enough for attempted murder charges, Mr. Chandler. Not against a prominent family with their version of events. Wright's tone softened slightly. Look, I believe something happened out there. But unless you can give me concrete evidence, this is he said, she said. And they've got money for lawyers who'll tear you apart. So they get away with it. I didn't say that. I'm saying build your case. Get evidence. Then we can move. Wright handed Andrew a card. Call me if you remember anything else. Details matter. Andrew watched the officer leave, frustration burning through him. The Grimes family had money, lawyers, and a coordinated story. He had the truth and a concussed head. But he also had skills they'd underestimated. 15 years of investigating fraud had taught Andrew how to build cases against people who thought they were untouchable. The Grimeses had tried to murder him and failed. They'd traumatized his daughter, and they made the fatal mistake of leaving both of them alive. Andrew returned to Emma's room and pulled out his laptop. Time to go to work. He started with public records, property holdings, business filings, court documents. The Grimes family empire looked solid on the surface. dozens of commercial properties across New England, residential developments, property management companies. But Andrew knew how to read between the lines. 3 hours of digging revealed the first cracks. Several properties in foreclosure, lawsuits from contractors over unpaid bills, and a suspicious sale of their largest shopping mall 6 months ago for well below market value. Andrew cross-referenced dates and found the pattern. The Grimes empire was collapsing. Quietly, carefully managed by expensive lawyers, but collapsing nonetheless. They needed money desperately. His phone buzzed. "Johnny, you were right about the finances. Grimes Development is bleeding cash. They're leveraged to the eyeballs, and several major projects failed. Best I can tell, they're about 18 months from bankruptcy. How much trouble are they in? 10 million in the hole, maybe more. Curtis made some bad investments, and the real estate market turned against them. They've been selling assets to stay afloat, but it's not enough." Andrew's mind raced. Life insurance pays out around $1 million. That barely makes a dent. Unless there's more insurance you don't know about. Check. Everything. Every policy Catherine might have taken out. Already on it. Also, I found something interesting. Catherine's been seeing a lawyer. Divorce attorney. Filed preliminary paperwork 2 months ago, but never submitted it. The betrayal cut deeper than Andrew expected, even knowing what Catherine had done. She was planning to leave me, or someone was planning it for her. Here's the thing. The lawyer's Wes Grimes's college roommate. This whole thing might have been orchestrated by the family, not Catherine. Andrew remembered his wife's face on the boat. The guilt, the tears, the paralysis. She's as much a victim as I am. Or she's an accomplice who got cold feet. Either way, we need to prove what happened. Johnny paused. About a guy who can access phone records. Not strictly legal, but do it. Find out what they've been planning. Andy, you sure about this? If we cross certain lines, anything we find might not be admissible. I don't care about admissible. I care about the truth. And I care about protecting Emma. Andrew's voice dropped. They try to kill my daughter, Johnny. I'm going to destroy them, legally or otherwise. All right, I'm with you. But we do this smart. We build the case brick by brick. After ending the call, Andrew sat in the darkened hospital room, listening to Emma's breathing. His daughter stirred, whimpered, then settled back into sleep. She'd saved both their lives with her quick thinking and bravery. Now, it was his turn to save her future. A nurse came to check vitals, and Andrew used the opportunity to stretch his legs. He walked to the hospital cafeteria, got coffee he didn't want, and found himself staring at nothing. "Mr. Chandler?" Andrew turned to find a woman in her 50s, dressed in expensive casual clothes, her expression sympathetic. She had kind eyes and a practice therapist's demeanor. "I'm Susan Whitaker. I'm a psychiatric social worker here. I heard about what happened to you and Emma. I wanted to check on you both." "We're fine. Are you? You've been through a trauma. So how's your daughter?" Susan sat down uninvited, which somehow made Andrew trust her less. "Emma's going to need support processing this. So will you. What we need is for the people who tried to kill us to face justice." "Of course. But in the meantime, Emma needs her father to be present and stable, not consumed by anger and revenge." Andrew studied the woman carefully. Something about her felt off, too polished, too perfectly timed. "Who sent you? The hospital or someone else?" Susan's smile faltered. "I don't understand. Did Patty Grimes send you to assess how much damage Emma can testify to? To see if we're vulnerable?" Andrew stood. "Tell Catherine's family that they miscalculated. Tell them I'm coming for them. And tell them that every attempt to manipulate me, intimidate me, or harm my daughter again will only make what's coming worse." He left Susan sitting there, face pale, and returned to Emma's room. His daughter was awake, staring at the ceiling. "Daddy, I'm here, baby. Why did Grandma hurt us?" Andrew sat on the edge of her bed, choosing his words carefully. Sometimes people do bad things because they want something they don't deserve. But you don't need to worry about that. Daddy's going to make sure we're safe. Is Mommy bad too? The question pierced him. Mommy made some mistakes. But the people who hurt us are going to have to answer for what they did. Emma's small hand found his. "I was so scared in the water. But you were so brave. You saved us both. Will they try again?" Andrew met his daughter's eyes, seeing fear and trust mixed together. "No, I promise you, baby, they will never hurt you again." It was a promise he intended to keep, no matter what it took. They released Emma from the hospital the next afternoon with instructions for follow-up care and counseling. Andrew arranged for them to stay at a hotel rather than return to the house he'd shared with Catherine. He wasn't ready to face his wife, and he wanted Emma in a secure location. Catherine texted again, "Please, Andrew, let me see Emma. Let me explain." Andrew ignored it. Instead, he met with Arthur McGrath, a criminal defense attorney Johnny had recommended. McGrath's office occupied the top floor of a sleek building in Hartford, and the man himself was 60-ish, silver-haired, and had the predatory intelligence of someone who won more cases than he lost. "Mr. Chandler, I've reviewed the police report and your investigators' preliminary findings," McGrath said, settling behind his desk. "You have a problem. Multiple problems. True, but the primary one is evidence, or lack thereof. The Grimes family has a coherent story. You have circumstantial claims and a child's testimony that any defense attorney will shred by suggesting trauma-induced confusion. My daughter isn't confused. I believe you, but belief doesn't win cases. Evidence does." McGrath pulled out a legal pad. "What I need from you is everything. Every conversation, every strange moment in your marriage, every financial detail. We're going to build a case that shows pattern, motive, and opportunity." Andrew spent 3 hours walking McGrath through 8 years of marriage, the subtle isolations from his friends and career, the financial control Catherine's family had gradually exerted, the life insurance policy Catherine had suggested they increased 2 years ago, now worth $2 million, not one, the prepaid funeral plans Catherine had insisted they set up just in case. McGrath took notes, occasionally asking pointed questions. When Andrew finished, the attorney leaned back in his chair. "The good news is there's definitely a pattern of preparation here. The bad news is none of it proves attempted murder. What about the insurance policies? Suspicious but not illegal. Many couples have large policies." McGrath tapped his pen against the pad. "What we need is communication. Emails, texts, recorded conversations between family members discussing the plan. Without that, you're fighting an uphill battle for criminal charges. I don't care about criminal charges anymore. I care about Emma's safety and custody." Now we're talking strategy." McGrath smiled thinly. "Family court has a different standard. We don't need proof beyond reasonable doubt. Just preponderance of evidence that Catherine is an unfit mother who endangered her child. Can you prove that?" "With what you've told me? Absolutely. She witnessed her family attempt to murder her daughter and did nothing to stop it. Even if we can't prove premeditation on her part, her failure to protect Emma is damning." McGrath made another note. "But there's a complication. The Grimes family will fight dirty. They'll claim you're mentally unstable, that you attacked them first, that you're using Emma as a weapon in a divorce. I'm not the one who filed preliminary divorce papers, which works in our favor. Shows intent on their part, not yours." McGrath leaned forward. "Mr. Chandler, I need to ask you something directly. What do you want? Justice? Custody? Revenge? Money? Because the strategy changes depending on your goal." Andrew thought of Emma in the hospital bed, asking if her mommy was bad. He thought of Patty Grimes's cold face as she threw a child into the ocean. He thought of Catherine's paralyzed guilt. "I want my daughter safe and away from that family forever. I want the truth exposed so they can't hurt anyone else. And yes, I want them to pay for what they did. Then we'll need to be strategic and patient. The criminal case moves on its own timeline. But we can file for emergency custody immediately, citing the attempted drowning and Catherine's failure to protect Emma. That gets your daughter out of her reach while we build the bigger case. Do it. One more thing." McGrath's expression grew serious. "In my experience, families like the Grimeses don't react well to being cornered. They'll escalate. Harassment, threats, possibly violence. You need to be prepared for that." "I am." "Good. Because once we file these papers, there's no going back. You'll be at war with them." Andrew thought of 10 minutes in freezing water, holding his terrified daughter, both of them playing dead to avoid sharks. We're already at war. They just don't know they've lost yet. That evening, Back at the hotel, Andrew helped Emma with her dinner while his phone exploded with messages. Catherine had apparently been informed of the emergency custody filing. The texts ranged from desperate pleas to accusations. "You can't take my daughter from me. I didn't know what they were planning. Please, Andrew, I love her. This is kidnapping. My lawyers will destroy you." The final text came from an unknown number. "You're making a mistake. Family is everything. There's still time to come home and fix this." Andrew blocked the number and turned off his phone. "Daddy, can we go swimming tomorrow?" Emma asked suddenly. The question startled him. "You want to swim? After everything? I like swimming. I don't want them to make me scared of it forever." Emma's voice was small but determined. Pride swelled in Andrew's chest. His daughter was stronger than anyone gave her credit for. "Okay, we'll find a pool tomorrow, but only if you're sure." "I'm sure." Later, after Emma fell asleep, Andrew sat on the hotel balcony with his laptop, reviewing the information Johnny had sent. Phone records showed extensive communication between Patty, Curtis, Wes, and Catherine in the weeks leading up to the boat trip. Most were innocuous, but the timing was suspicious. A spike in calls immediately after Catherine met with the divorce lawyer. Then Andrew found something interesting. A transfer of $50,000 from Curtis to Catherine 3 weeks ago, labeled advance. Advance on what? He called Johnny. The money Curtis gave Catherine. Any idea what it was for? "Working on it. But I found something else you need to know." Johnny's voice was grim. "The Grimes family has been making inquiries about you. Specifically, they hired a PI to dig into your background about 2 months ago. Looking for what? Dirt. Anything they could use against you in a custody battle or to discredit you. The PI's report is pretty thin. You're clean, Andy. But they were definitely building a case against you before the boat trip. So this was planned well in advance. Looks like it. The question is whether Catherine was part of the planning or just a pawn they manipulated." Andrew thought of his wife's face, the guilt and fear. I think she knew something was coming but didn't know what, or didn't want to admit it to herself. That actually might help us. If we can flip her, get her to testify against her family. She won't. Family loyalty runs too deep with the Grimeses. Everyone has a breaking point, especially when they're looking at accessory to attempted murder charges. I'm not interested in prosecuting Catherine. I just want him as safe. Your call. But she might be our best source of information about what they planned. Johnny paused. There's something else. I pulled Curtis's financial records. Guy's a gambler. Lost over 300 grand in Atlantic City last year alone. That's probably where a lot of the family money went. The pieces were assembling into a clearer picture. Curtis's gambling debts, the failing business, the insurance policies, the planned divorce. The Grimes family had been circling the drain financially and saw Andrew as the solution. Kill him, collect the insurance, maintain control of Emma, and presumably bleed Catherine's inheritance dry. Except they'd underestimated both Andrew and Emma. Andrew worked late into the night, building a timeline of events, connecting financial records to communications to actions. By dawn, he had the skeleton of a narrative that showed deliberate planning and malicious intent. But as McGrath had said, narrative wasn't proof. And the Grimes family had resources to fight back. The next morning, Andrew woke to a call from Officer Wright. "Mr. Chandler, I wanted to give you a heads up. The Grimes family has filed a police report claiming you kidnapped Emma." Andrew's jaw clenched. "I have emergency custody papers filed. She's with her legal guardian." "I know. I've seen them. But they're claiming you used force and threats. Just wanted you to know they're playing hardball." "Noted. Also, we executed a warrant on the boat. Found some interesting things." Andrew sat up straight. "Like what?" "Can't discuss an active investigation. But let's just say their version of events has some inconsistencies with the physical evidence." Wright's tone carried satisfaction. "Keep your daughter close, Mr. Chandler. And watch your back." The call ended, leaving Andrew with a spark of hope. Physical evidence from the boat could prove the Grimeses were lying. Combined with the financial motive and planning, they might have a real case. His phone rang again. "Catherine." Against his better judgment, Andrew answered. "Andrew, please. I need to see Emma." His wife's voice was ragged from crying. "I'm her mother. You watched your family try to kill her. I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know what they were planning." They told me it would just be a confrontation, a chance to convince you to agree to divorce terms. I never thought, she broke down sobbing. If you didn't know, why didn't you stop them? I was scared. They said if I interfered, I'd lose Emma forever. That they'd make sure I was declared unfit. Curtis threatened me. Andrew, they've been threatening me for months. Then testify against them. Silence on the line. Then quietly, I can't. They're my family. And Emma is your daughter. Choose. It's not that simple. It is exactly that simple. Either you protect Emma, or you protect the people who try to kill her. There's no middle ground. Andrew's voice hardened. You have until tomorrow to decide. Cooperate with the police and testify truthfully, or I will make sure you never see Emma again. Andrew. He hung up. Emma appeared in the doorway, clutching her stuffed dolphin. Was that Mommy? Yes. Does she miss us? Andrew pulled his daughter into a hug. I think she misses what we used to be. But things have changed, baby. We can't go back to how it was. I miss her sometimes, but I'm also mad at her. You can be both. Feelings are complicated. Emma nodded against his chest. Daddy, when can we go home? We'll find a new home. Just you and me. Somewhere safe and happy. Promise? I promise. The custody hearing was scheduled for the following week, but the Grimes family moved faster than expected. 2 days after Andrew's call with Catherine, his hotel room door received a sharp knock at 11 p.m. Andrew checked the peephole and found 2 police officers. Not right, but 2 unfamiliar faces. His instincts screamed warning. Can I help you? He called through the door. Mr. Chandler, we need you to come with us. There's been a complaint filed. About what? Sir, please open the door. Andrew quickly texted Johnny and McGrath, police at hotel, claiming complaint. Possible setup. Then he opened the door with the chain still on. The officers, one was Officer Andre Case according to his nameplate, looked annoyed. We need you to come to the station to answer some questions about an assault allegation. What assault? Curtis Grimes claims you attacked him yesterday. Says you showed up at his office making threats. Andrew hadn't left the hotel except to take Emma to the pool. That's impossible. I've been here with my daughter, and hotel security footage will prove it. Nevertheless, we need you to come in. Am I under arrest? Not yet, but we can arrange that if you're uncooperative. Andrew recognized the play. Get him away from Emma, separate them, create an opportunity. I'm not going anywhere without my attorney present. You can contact Arthur McGrath if you need to speak with me. Case's expression hardened. Mr. Chandler, making this difficult. I'm exercising my rights. Unless you have a warrant, I'm not coming with you. The officers exchanged glances. We'll be in touch, Case said, and they left. Andrew immediately called McGrath, who was furious. That was a fishing expedition. Curtis is trying to manufacture evidence against you. I'll file a complaint about police harassment. They'll try again. Next time it might be a warrant. Then we need to move faster. I'm going to push for an expedited custody hearing. And we need to get Emma somewhere they can't reach her. Where? I have a colleague in Vermont with a safe house they use for domestic violence victims. Off the grid, secure. You and Emma stay there until the hearing. Andrew looked at his sleeping daughter. How long? 5 days, maybe a week. I know it's not ideal, but do it. Emma's safety comes first. Within 2 hours, Andrew and Emma were in the back of an unmarked van driven by one of McGrath's security team, heading north into the mountains. Emma slept through most of the journey, exhausted by the constant upheaval. The safe house turned out to be a renovated farmhouse on 50 acres of wooded land, managed by a woman named Jo Shields who'd spent 20 years helping abuse victims disappear. She took one look at Andrew's haggard face and Emma's haunted eyes and nodded understanding. You're safe here. No one knows this location except McGrath and me. We've got security systems, emergency protocols, and I'm armed. Jo was 60-ish, tough as nails, with kind eyes that had seen too much. Make yourselves at home. The house was cozy, filled with books and comfortable furniture. Emma perked up when she discovered a tree house in the backyard. For the first time in days, Andrew saw her genuinely smile. That night, while Emma drew pictures of the tree house, Andrew received an email from Johnny containing phone records and financial data. The investigator had outdone himself. Months of Grimes family communications, bank statements, property records, everything. Andrew spent hours combing through it all, building a timeline. What emerged was a chilling picture of calculated planning. 6 months ago, Curtis's gambling debts reached critical levels. Creditors were threatening seizure of family assets. Patty convened a family meeting, documented in Curtis's calendar as emergency family only. 4 months ago, Catherine was instructed to increase Andrew's life insurance and met with the divorce lawyer. She resisted, evidenced by tearful phone calls to her mother that Johnny had somehow accessed. 3 months ago, Patty hired the PI to investigate Andrew. The report came back clean, frustrating their attempts to find grounds for removing him from Emma's life legally. 2 months ago, Curtis made the $50,000 payment to Catherine, labeled advance. Johnny had traced it. It was payment for Catherine's cooperation in the divorce that would follow Andrew's accidental death. 1 month ago, the boat trip was planned. Multiple conversations between Patty, Curtis, and Wes about the solution and handling the problem. The day before the boat trip, Catherine had called her mother crying, saying she couldn't do it. Patty's response was recorded. "You'll do what's necessary for this family, or you'll lose everything too." Andrew sat back, staggered by the scope of the conspiracy. Catherine had been coerced, but she'd ultimately complied. And Emma had been collateral damage they were willing to accept. His phone rang. "McGrath, I've got news." The police finished analyzing the boat. They found evidence that supports your version of events. What kind of evidence? Your blood on the deck in multiple locations consistent with being struck and dragged. Defensive wounds on the boat rail where you fought back. And they found Emma's stuffed dolphin, the one she had with her, under a bench on the stern like someone had hidden it. Why would they hide her toy? Because in their version of events, Emma fell overboard accidentally while you were fighting. But you told police she was playing with that dolphin when they grabbed her. If it was under the bench, someone put it there deliberately, probably to support their narrative of chaos and accident. Hope surged through Andrew. Is that enough? It's enough to get the DA interested in pressing charges. Combined with the financial motive and planning you've uncovered, we have a solid case for attempted murder. What about Catherine? That's complicated. She could be charged as an accessory, but if she testifies against her family, the DA might offer immunity. Andrew thought of his wife's voice. They're my family. She won't testify. Then she goes down with them. Her choice. That night, Andrew couldn't sleep. He stood on the farmhouse porch, looking at stars undimmed by city lights, thinking about how quickly life could unravel. A week ago, he'd been unhappily married but stable. Now he was hiding in Vermont, his daughter was traumatized, and he was building a case against his wife's family for attempted murder. The door opened behind him. Emma, wrapped in a blanket. "Can't sleep either?" Andrew asked. "I had a bad dream. About Grandma." Andrew pulled her close. "Want to talk about it?" "She was pushing me again, but this time you weren't there. Just cold water forever." Emma shivered. "Daddy, why did you want to hurt us? People who care more about money than people do terrible things." But she made a mistake. She underestimated how strong you are. How strong we both are. Are we going to beat them? Andrew looked down at his daughter, her face upturned and trusting. "Yes, baby. We're going to make sure they never hurt anyone again." "Good, because I'm tired of being scared." "Me too." They stood together in the mountain silence, two survivors planning their next move. The Grimes family had wealth and lawyers and a coordinated defense. But Andrew had something more powerful: the truth, the evidence, and the absolute conviction of a father protecting his child. The war was far from over, but Andrew Chandler was just getting started. The next day brought unexpected news. Officer Wright called with an update. "We've arrested Wes Grimes on assault charges related to the boat incident. Your head wound matches the pattern of his class ring. He's claiming self-defense, but the evidence doesn't support it." "What about Curtis and Patty?" "Curtis is being questioned. Patty's lawyered up and refusing to talk." Wright paused. "But here's the thing. Wes is nervous. Guys sweating bullets in the interview room. I think he might flip if we press him." "Then press him." "We are. But I wanted to give you a heads up. His lawyer's already floating a deal. Testimony against the others in exchange for reduced charges." Andrew considered this. Wes was the muscle of the family, not the brains. He followed orders from Patty and Curtis. If he testified about the planning, the conspiracy, the deliberate attempt to murder Andrew and Emma, take the deal if it gives us what we need to convict the others. That's what I figured. I'll keep you posted. After hanging up, Andrew found Emma in the treehouse with Joe, the two of them having an animated conversation about birds. Joe had become a grandmother figure almost instantly, and Emma had latched onto her warmth. "Mr. Chandler," Joe called down. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" Andrew climbed up into the treehouse, squeezing into the small space. Emma was identifying birds in a picture book, completely absorbed. "She's doing better," Joe said quietly. "Still nightmares, still jumpy around water, but she's resilient. Kids are remarkable that way. She saved our lives. 7 years old, and she saved us." She told me. Also told me about her mom. Joe's expression was carefully neutral. Emma's confused about Catherine. Loves her, but feels betrayed. That's going to take time to process. I know. I don't want to poison her against her mother, but I also can't pretend Catherine didn't fail her. You're doing the right thing, protecting her first. But eventually, Emma will need answers about why her mom didn't stop what happened. You should think about how you'll handle that. Andrew watched his daughter, so focused on the birds, try to maintain normalcy in an abnormal situation. I'll tell her the truth, age appropriately, that sometimes people we love make terrible choices, that we can love them and still not trust them. Joe nodded approval. That's good. Honest but fair. That evening, McGrath called with an update on the custody hearing. Good news and bad news. Good news. The judge reviewed the evidence and granted us temporary full custody with supervised visitation only for Catherine. She's not allowed unsupervised contact with Emma until the hearing. And the bad news? Catherine's family is pulling out all the stops. They've hired Preston and Associates, top family law firm in the state. They're going to argue you're an unfit father who's manipulating Emma and using the boat incident to alienate her from her mother. That's ridiculous. Of course it is. But they'll try to paint you as obsessed with revenge, mentally unstable, possibly dangerous. They'll use the fact that you're hiding in Vermont as evidence you're unstable. I'm protecting my daughter. I know, and we'll prove it. But be prepared for them to play dirty. McGrath's tone turned serious. Andrew, they're going to go after your character, your parenting, maybe even your career. They'll dig up every mistake you've ever made and blow it out of proportion. Can you handle that? Andrew thought of Emma's face in the water, her whispered warning, her bravery. For my daughter? I can handle anything. Good, because it's going to get worse before it gets better. McGrath was right. Over the next 3 days, Andrew was hit with a barrage of legal maneuvers. Catherine's lawyers filed motions claiming he was alienating Emma, that he'd fled the state illegally, that he was brainwashing their daughter against her mother's family. They dragged up an incident from college where Andrew had been arrested at a protest, charges dropped. They questioned his finances, his career choices, his decision to take Emma out of school. It was death by 1,000 cuts, designed to overwhelm and exhaust him. But Andrew had spent years investigating people who used the legal system as a weapon. He knew the tactics, and he refused to be intimidated. Instead, he focused on gathering more evidence. Johnny had delivered copies of all the financial records, communications, and timelines. Andrew organized it all into a comprehensive narrative that showed not just the boat incident, but months of planning and malicious intent. He also did something unexpected. He started documenting everything for a potential documentary. If the courts failed him, if the Grimes family somehow escaped justice, he would expose them publicly. He recorded video statements, organized evidence, built a case that could be presented to the world. The night before the custody hearing, Andrew sat Emma down for a serious talk. Tomorrow, we're going to court. Do you know what that means? A judge decides things. That's right. And the judge is going to ask questions about what happened on the boat. You might have to talk to the judge about what Grandma said to you. Emma's face paled. I don't want to. I know, baby. But it's important that people know the truth. Can you be brave one more time? Will Mommy be there? Probably. Will she be mad at me? Andrew pulled Emma into his lap. You haven't done anything wrong. If mommy's mad, that's her problem, not yours. You just have to tell the truth about what happened. Can you do that? Emma nodded slowly. I'll try. That's all anyone can ask. That night, Andrew lay awake thinking about the next day. Everything came down to this hearing. If he won, Emma would be safe and protected. If he lost, she'd be back in the orbit of people who'd try to kill her. Failure wasn't an option. The next morning, they drove back to Connecticut, arriving at the courthouse with security provided by McGrath's firm. Protesters had gathered. Apparently, the Grimes family had gotten to the media, painting Andrew as an abusive father. Signs read, "Let Catherine see her daughter," and "Stop parental alienation." Andrew ignored them, focusing on Emma's hand in his as they walked inside. The courtroom was smaller than expected, wood-paneled and formal. Catherine sat on the opposite side with her lawyers, 4 of them, all in expensive suits. She looked thin and haggard, dark circles under her eyes. When she saw Emma, she started to rise, but her lead attorney pulled her back down. Patty Grimes sat behind Catherine, imperious and cold. Curtis was noticeably absent, likely still being questioned by police. Wes was in jail, awaiting charges. The judge, a woman in her 50s named Joanne Phelps, entered and everyone stood. She reviewed the case files before looking up. This is a preliminary custody hearing regarding Emma Chandler, age 7. I've reviewed the emergency custody petition and the responses. This is going to be a difficult proceeding given the serious allegations involved. Judge Phelps looked at both sides. I want to be clear, my only concern is the welfare of the child. I don't care about family politics or money or reputation. I care about Emma's safety and well-being. Understood. Both legal teams nodded. The hearing began with McGrath presenting Andrew's case. The attorney laid out everything methodically. The boat incident, the evidence of planning, the financial motives, the physical evidence from the boat, and most damningly, Emma's account of what her grandmother had told her. Catherine's lawyers objected repeatedly, but Judge Phelps allowed most of it. Then it was their turn. The lead attorney, a shark named Jeffrey Cahill, stood and immediately went on the attack. Your Honor, what we have here is a vindictive husband using false allegations to punish his wife for wanting a divorce. Mr. Chandler has a history of paranoia and conspiracy theories. His entire career is built on accusing people of fraud. He simply applied that same mindset to his wife's family. Andrew forced himself to stay calm as Cahill painted him as unstable, manipulative, and possibly dangerous. Furthermore, Cahill continued, Mr. Chandler fled the state with Emma in violation of joint custody arrangements, refused to let the mother see her daughter, and has been filling the child's head with lies about her grandmother and uncles. This is textbook parental alienation. McGrath stood. Your Honor, Mr. Chandler has emergency custody papers. He didn't flee. He protected his daughter from people who threw her into the ocean. Allegedly threw her, Cahill shot back. We have no proof of intent. What we have is a tragic boating accident that Mr. Chandler has twisted into a murder conspiracy. What about the physical evidence? McGrath demanded. The blood patterns, the hidden toy, the defensive wounds, all consistent with an accident during a physical altercation that Mr. Chandler started. The arguments went back and forth for 2 hours. Andrew watched the judge's face, trying to read her reaction, but Phelps remained neutral. Finally, the judge raised her hand. I'd like to speak with Emma privately. Just myself and a child advocate. Andrew's stomach dropped. Emma squeezed his hand, frightened. You'll do great, baby, he whispered. Just tell the truth. Emma was led into the judge's chambers with a kind-looking woman introduced as a child advocate. Andrew waited, every minute feeling like an hour. Catherine tried to approach him during the break, but security stopped her. Please, Andrew, she called across the room. Please let me explain. Your Honor, Cahill interrupted. Mr. Chandler is preventing the mother from. Judge Phelps emerged from her chambers, her expression grave. Everyone sit down. Now, the room fell silent. I've spoken with Emma. I've reviewed all the evidence, and I'm ready to make my ruling on temporary custody. Phelps looked directly at Catherine. Mrs. Chandler, your daughter is terrified of your family. She recounted in detail what her grandmother told her before pushing her into the water. She described hearing you cry, but not seeing you help. And when I asked if she felt safe with you, she hesitated. Catherine's face crumpled. However, the judge continued. She also expressed love for you and confusion about why you didn't protect her. That tells me there's a relationship worth preserving under the right circumstances. Andrew felt a flicker of hope. Therefore, I'm ruling as follows. Andrew Chandler retains full legal and physical custody of Emma until the completion of the criminal investigation and trial. Catherine Chandler may have supervised visitation once per week for 2 hours, supervised by a court-appointed monitor. The Grimes family, specifically Patty, Curtis, and Wes Grimes, are to have no contact whatsoever with Emma until further order of this court. Patty Grimes shot to her feet. This is outrageous. She's my granddaughter. She's also a child you allegedly tried to murder, Mrs. Grimes. Sit down before I hold you in contempt. Phelps's voice was steel. Patty sat, fury radiating from her. This ruling is effective immediately. Mr. Chandler, I strongly recommend counseling for Emma to process this trauma. Mrs. Chandler, I suggest you examine your choices and your family loyalties very carefully. We'll reconvene after the criminal proceedings. The gavel came down. Andrew exhaled for what felt like the first time in hours. Emma was safe, legally protected. The Grimeses couldn't touch her. Catherine remained seated, crying quietly. Patty stormed out of the courtroom, her lawyers scrambling after her. Outside, McGrath clapped Andrew on the shoulder. We won. Emma's protected. For now is enough. We take the victories as they come. Andrew watched Catherine exit the courthouse, surrounded by lawyers, but fundamentally alone. Part of him felt pity for her, manipulated by her family, coerced into betrayal, now isolated from her daughter. But a larger part remembered her paralyzed on that boat, watching Emma be thrown to the sharks. Some choices couldn't be forgiven. That evening, back at the hotel, Andrew and Emma ordered room service and watched a mindless animated movie. Emma seemed lighter, as if the judge's ruling had lifted a weight. Daddy, what happens now? Now we focus on getting you back to normal. New school, new house, new life. Will we ever see Mommy again? If you want to when you're ready. The judge said she can visit you sometimes. But not Grandma. No, not Grandma. Not your uncles. They can't come near you. Emma considered this. Good. I don't want to see them ever again. The finality in her voice broke Andrew's heart. His daughter shouldn't have to make declarations like that at 7 years old. But she did, because the Grimes family had forced her to. They'd taken her innocence and her sense of safety. For that alone, Andrew would make sure they paid dearly. Later, after Emma was asleep, Johnny called with significant news. Wes flipped, cut a deal with the DA. He's testifying against Patty and Curtis in exchange for reduced charges, probably 5 years instead of 20. What's he saying? Everything. The whole conspiracy. Apparently, it was Patty's idea from the start. She convinced Curtis and Wes that killing you was the only way to save the family. They planned it for months, pressured Catherine into compliance, even practiced the story they'd tell police. And the insurance money was supposed to pay off Curtis's gambling debts and keep the business afloat for another year while they restructured. They'd also collect on Emma eventually. Catherine had a policy on her too, worth $500,000. Andrew felt sick. They insured Emma planning to kill her. Not initially. The policy was legitimate, taken out when she was born. But once they decided to kill you, they realized Emma was worth more dead than alive, especially if you both died in the same accident. Less witnesses, bigger payout. Jesus Christ. Yeah. Wes also said that Patty specifically told Emma about the sharks because she wanted the girl to panic and attract them. Increase the chances of death. Make it look more convincingly accidental. If Emma died, it was a bonus. If she survived, they planned to paint you as the irresponsible father who got her into danger. Every word made Andrew's blood boil. Tell me they're going to prison. With Wes's testimony and the physical evidence? Absolutely. The DA is filing first-degree attempted murder charges against Patty and Curtis. Catherine's looking at accessory charges, but they might offer her a deal if she cooperates. I don't care what happens to Catherine anymore. as long as Emma never has to see those monsters again. She won't. Trust me, they're done. After hanging up, Andrew sat in the darkness, processing everything. The Grimes family had planned to murder him and his daughter for money. Not in a moment of passion or desperation, but methodically over months with contingency plans and cover stories. And they'd almost succeeded. If Emma hadn't been so brave and smart, if she hadn't figured out Patty's cruel hint about the sharks, they'd both be dead. The Grimeses would have collected millions, mourned publicly, and moved on with their lives. Instead, they were facing life in prison. Andrew should have felt triumphant, but mostly he felt exhausted and sad. Sad for Emma, who'd lost her mother's family and possibly her mother. Sad for the years he'd wasted in a marriage built on his wife's family's greed and manipulation. Sad for the innocence and trust that had died in that cold water. But beneath the sadness was something harder. Determination. The Grimeses had declared war on his family. They tried to destroy everything he loved. And while the legal system would punish them, Andrew wanted more than prison time. He wanted them utterly destroyed. Reputation, wealth, legacy, everything. And he knew exactly how to do it. 3 weeks later, Andrew Chandler stood before a packed conference room at the offices of a major streaming documentary service. He'd spent those weeks putting together something unprecedented, a comprehensive documentary about the Grimes family's conspiracy to commit murder, told through evidence, interviews, and his own first-person account. The streaming service executives had been skeptical at first. Family crime documentaries were common. But this was different. This was a filmmaker using his own attempted murder as the subject, with access to evidence and perspective no outside documentarian could match. The title is Legacy of Greed, Andrew began, clicking to the first slide. It's the story of one family's descent into murderous conspiracy, told through the lens of the survivors, myself and my 7-year-old daughter. He walked them through the structure. Act 1, establishing the Grimes family's wealth and power. Act 2, revealing their financial collapse and growing desperation. Act 3, documenting the murder plot. Act 4, showing the investigation and Andrew's fight for custody. And Act 5, the conclusion, revealing the final pieces of the conspiracy that even the police didn't know yet. Because I'm not just documenting what happened, Andrew continued. I'm still investigating. And I found things that will shock even people who think they know this case. The executives leaned forward. For instance, this wasn't the first time the Grimes family considered murder. I found evidence of an accident that killed Catherine's uncle 15 years ago, an uncle who was about to expose Curtis's early financial crimes. Police ruled it accidental death. I don't think it was. He showed documents, suspicious timelines, inconsistencies in the police report. I also discovered that Patty Grimes has a history of eliminating obstacles. A business partner who disappeared. A competitor who died in a suspicious house fire. Nothing was ever proven, but the pattern is there. The evidence spilled out, methodically building a case that the Grimes family were serial criminals who'd gotten away with it for decades. Until they'd made the mistake of targeting someone who knew how to expose the truth. By the end of the presentation, the executives were sold. We'll greenlight 6 episodes, the head of documentaries said. We want this fast-tracked for release before the trial. Maximum impact. Andrew shook hands, knowing he'd just launched a weapon more devastating than any prison sentence. The documentary would destroy the Grimes family's reputation permanently. Their name would become synonymous with greed and murder. Future generations would study them as cautionary tales. It was a revenge carefully constructed, legally airtight, and utterly devastating. But he wasn't finished. While building the documentary, Andrew had also been working with Johnny on another project, a civil lawsuit against the Grimes family for attempted murder, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and assault. The lawsuit sought $50 million in damages. The Grimes family was already financially ruined. This lawsuit would ensure they stayed that way forever, unable to rebuild their empire or restore their name. You're going scorched earth, Johnny observed during one of their planning sessions. Nothing left but ashes. They tried to kill my daughter. They deserve ashes. The investigators studied Andrew carefully. Just make sure you're doing this for the right reasons. Revenge can consume you if you're not careful. I'm doing it for Emma, so she never has to worry about them again. So no one else ever has to worry about them. And you believe that? Andrew met his friend's eyes. Yes, this isn't about revenge. It's about justice and prevention. The Grimeses are predators. I'm making sure they can never hunt again. Johnny nodded slowly. All right, then let's finish this. The criminal trial began in early fall. Andrew attended every day, sitting in the front row with Emma's dolphin stuffed animal in his lap. A quiet reminder of what they'd survived. Wes Grimes testified first, laying out the entire conspiracy in devastating detail. The DA played recordings of family conversations that Johnny had obtained through legal but questionable means. Curtis Grimes's lawyer tried to discredit the evidence, but the jury's faces showed they weren't buying it. Patty Grimes maintained her imperious demeanor throughout, refusing to testify and glaring at anyone who met her eyes. Her lawyer painted her as a concerned grandmother trying to save her family, but the evidence was overwhelming. Catherine testified reluctantly, admitting she'd known something was planned, but claiming she didn't know it would be murder. Her testimony was halting, tear-filled, and ultimately damning to her family. On cross-examination, Catherine's lawyer tried to paint her as a victim. Mrs. Chandler, were you threatened by your family if you didn't cooperate? Yes. They said I'd lose Emma, that they'd prove I was unfit. So, but you were coerced? Yes. But I should have done more. I should have stopped them. Catherine's eyes found Andrew in the gallery. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Andrew looked away. The apology was too little, too late. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty on all counts. Patty Grimes received life in prison without parole. Curtis Grimes received 40 years. Wes, due to his cooperation, received 15 years. Andrew watched them being led away in shackles and felt nothing. No triumph, no satisfaction, just a cold sense of completion. Catherine avoided prison through her cooperation, receiving instead 5 years probation and a permanent restraining order, keeping her from Emma without court supervision. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed Andrew. Mr. Chandler, how do you feel about the verdict? Justice was served. My daughter is safe. That's what matters. Will you allow Emma to see her mother? That will be Emma's choice when she's old enough to make it. Your documentary about the case is releasing next week. Some critics say you're profiting from your family's tragedy. Andrew turned to face the camera directly. I'm exposing people who planned to murder a 7-year-old girl for insurance money. If that makes people uncomfortable, good. They should be uncomfortable. And yes, I'm profiting because that profit goes into a trust fund for Emma's future and into a foundation I'm starting to help other families targeted by domestic violence. That shut down the criticism effectively. The documentary, Legacy of Greed, premiered to massive viewership and critical acclaim. It won awards. It sparked conversations about family violence, financial desperation, and the dangers of toxic family loyalty. Most importantly, it ensured that the Grimes name would forever be associated with infamy. The civil lawsuit settled before trial. The Grimes family had nothing left to fight with. Andrew received $30 million from their remaining assets, insurance settlements, and a liquidation of their real estate empire. He kept $5 million for Emma's trust fund and future therapy. The rest went into the foundation, helping families escape dangerous situations and building cases against domestic abusers. 6 months after the trial, Andrew and Emma moved to a small coastal town in Maine. They bought a house with a view of the ocean. Emma's request, refusing to let what happened make her afraid of water. Emma started 3rd grade and new school. She made friends. She went to therapy weekly. The nightmares decreased over time. Andrew scaled back his documentary work, focusing on shorter consulting projects that kept him close to home. He wrote a book about the case, another way to ensure the truth was permanently recorded. On the 1st anniversary of the boat incident, Andrew and Emma went to the beach. They talked about this day, decided together how to market. Emma carried flowers her mother had sent. Catherine's supervised visits had been happening monthly, awkward and painful, but slowly rebuilding trust. Emma took the flowers and threw them into the water. "For the us that didn't make it home that day," Emma said quietly. "The us that was before." Andrew added his own flowers. "And for the us that's here now, stronger." They stood watching the waves, two survivors who'd beaten impossible odds through courage, quick thinking, and refusal to surrender. "Daddy, do you still think about them? Grandma and the uncles?" "Sometimes." "Do you?" "Sometimes I'm mad. Sometimes I'm sad. Mostly I'm just glad they can't hurt us anymore." "That's healthy. All those feelings are okay." Emma took his hand. "I'm proud of us. For surviving. For making them pay." Andrew squeezed her hand. "Me too, baby. Me too." They walked back from the beach toward their new life. A life built not on wealth or status, but on truth, justice, and the unbreakable bond between a father and daughter who'd saved each other's lives. The Grimes family had wanted to destroy them for money. Instead, they destroyed themselves through their own greed and evil. And Andrew Chandler had made sure everyone would know it. Years later, when Emma was 16, she asked to visit her mother in prison. Catherine had been resentenced after violating probation, serving a reduced sentence for her cooperation, but still paying for her complicity. Andrew drove Emma to the facility, waiting in the car while his daughter went inside. He'd asked if she wanted him to come, but Emma needed to do this alone. She emerged 2 hours later, eyes red but face peaceful. "How was it?" Andrew asked carefully. "She's different. Older. Sadder." She apologized again. Said she thinks about that day every night. Emma buckled her seatbelt. "I told her I forgave her for being weak, but I couldn't forget what she let happen. That's fair." She said she understood, that she didn't deserve my forgiveness anyway. Emma looked out the window. "I think I needed to say it, though. To let go of the anger." Andrew started the car. "I'm proud of you. That took courage. You taught me about courage. In the water, when you kept swimming even though you were hurt and scared. You showed me that courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about doing what needs to be done anyway. You show me the same thing. You saved us, Emma. Never forget that. We saved each other." They drove home in comfortable silence, past the markers of their new life. Emma's high school, the bookstore where Andrew did writing sessions, the ice cream shop they visited every Friday. The Grimes family was gone. Patty had died in prison 2 years ago, Curtis and Wes still serving their sentences. Their legacy was one of infamy and cautionary tales. The Chandler legacy was different. It was a foundation helping hundreds of families escape violence. It was a documentary that changed how people thought about family loyalty and when it became toxic. It was a father and daughter who'd survived the unsurvivable and built something beautiful from the wreckage. Andrew Chandler had won not just custody or court cases or money. He'd won the right to raise his daughter in safety, to build a life based on truth and justice, to know that the people who tried to destroy them had instead destroyed themselves. It was a victory that felt earned, hard-fought, and absolutely complete. And as Emma grew into a strong, smart young woman who wanted to become a lawyer, helping abuse victims, Andrew knew that the best revenge was the life they'd built together, a life the Grimeses could never touch or tarnish. They tried to drown the Chandlers in cold water and the shark-infested seas. Instead, the Chandlers had risen from those waters stronger, built a legacy of their own, and ensured that the Grimes name would forever be a warning about the price of greed. Justice, in the end, had been served, and it tasted like salt water, survival, and the sweet victory of truth prevailing over evil. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.